This is James. Just want to do a quick synopsis on the ATI Galeo. As you know, if you're watching this, ATI has built a number of these on 4140 forged steel receivers, 4150 barrels. Other than that, it's almost like a Central or South American contract gun. There's no scope mount or lightning cut, the block square-sided receiver. But otherwise, the parts kit that it was made out of is in very, very, very good condition. That's the original polymer IMI handguard, pistol grip, and you may notice that barrels parkerized. I had just did matte black Norells on the gas tube, the receiver, the top cover, left the rear sight parkerized just a little bit closer to how they would have came from IMI back in the day. But I took it out to the range last weekend, and a couple thoughts. I know there's a lot of discussion on the magazines that will work in these. We've come to the conclusion that the Tapcos work 100%. I found that to be the case. The metal receiver or the metal magazines are a little more hit or miss. And the reason is they don't sit high enough into the receiver. As you notice, this is a new old stock. This is a South African R4 magazine. And if you've got any experience with the Israeli metal magazines, no two are alike. South African ones may be a little more consistent, but none of them would feed in this gun, in this rifle from the factory. And the reason why is the rear of the magazine just doesn't sit up high enough on the metal magazines. If you see these receivers in the raw, if you look at the 6 o'clock position, never mind my grubby fingers, there's a little machine cut. It's a semicircular cut where the top of the magazine lug would engage the receiver. That cut on the ATI receiver is a little too shallow for the metal magazines. So from my standpoint, you don't touch the mag catch, but you allow the lug to do its job. You need to machine that out a little bit. You can either do it with a hand file or you can do it with a Dremel, it depends, but I would do it very slowly and very deliberately. And that will raise the rear of the metal military magazines to snap in very nicely and feed. Now you do need to go through your metal magazines. Every type of issue that can happen with these can happen. The followers can get stuck even on brand new ones. I'd clean them. What I wound up doing with a bunch of these South African and some of the Israeli magazines is going through and mix and matching followers until they ran smooth, and then hand cycled rounds through the rifle, make sure they fed and extracted properly, because what you'd see is rounds getting stuck in the magazine, particularly 62 grain M855 green tips really don't like the metal magazines. They're very tight fit. So if you want to use the metal magazines, you're going to have to do a little bit of work here and machine that circular section out. I had only one metal magazine that would snap in. Now they all snap in and feed properly, but it just raises the rear enough to pick up rounds if you've got any failures with the metal magazines after that, you just have to pay very close attention to the magazine itself. I don't think, unless the magazine's damaged, that you have to go and open feed lips or anything. This gets you to the right height on the inside of the magazine, or the receiver rather. And one test you could do is when you pull the top cover, you want that bolt to skim, just barely engage that follower. If it's engaging the follower and you see it moving when the bolt moves forward, it will pick up a round. So just a word of advice, hand cycle some rounds through it, be very careful, point the rifle in the safe direction, and hand cycle rounds through it. If the magazine hiccups, you're going to need to do some work to the magazine. You may need oil, might need a new spring. Pay attention to the feed lips on used surplus magazines. As we know, Israel uses these things up to the last round. So you might need to do some refurbishment. If you can find new old stock magazines, even better. But otherwise, the Tapcos run good, and my metal magazines run perfect. But it took a little trial and error to get even new ones to that point. But otherwise, the rifle itself, it's a very good build. I mean, out of the box, no issues outside of getting the metal magazines to work properly. It comes with the bayonet lug. You can pick up the ARM bipods, $30-40. Mine came with the flip-up night sights. I did replace the tritium. And you can catch that, but I put a red one on the front. And it's a simple process with a 1/16 drill bit to drill out the old tritium vials, install the new ones. A little dab of super glue and clear Elmer's glue instead of the epoxy in the little disc window there. I did the same thing for the rear. A pair of greens. There's a couple vendors that sell them. I think they're 0.5 by 1.6. A pair of greens. And it sure took all of 20 minutes to do all three. No, sighting it in, it was very accurate with 55 and 62 grain. My windage was a little over. I had to push the sight over to the left, but it prints fine at 100 yards within spec. And stock is extremely tight, no wobble whatsoever on the stock. So otherwise, I'm very pleased with what you get for the money here. Outside of the magazine issue, which can be fixed, it's a solid rifle. Indexed and timed well. The parts kit is very good. And I'll give it a thumbs up. Now, this is a hobbyist system platform. This is a fun range toy. If you've got a real situation and you need a go-to firearm, stick with your AR, stick with, your SIG platform, Daniel Defense. I mean, those are tier 1 systems. But these are fun. And if you missed out on the pre-ban IMI 80s production, you can jump into this without spending an arm and a leg and get a nice taste of what owning a Galeo is like for a reasonable price, under $1,000. I remember a couple of years back when the Century Arms Golani was out. I handled a couple of them. I was very impressed with what I was seeing, except we heard about issues with receivers out of spec and locking lugs not engaging properly. So it was a pass for me, which was a disappointment. I didn't want to have to grab a century job and then have to send it off to, a smith to make it run right. So these run great right out of the box. If you're not against the Tapco mags, they'll run all day long. Buy them in bundles. I know there's a couple sellers on Gunbroker that sell them real cheap. Maybe get a couple surplus metal magazines, or you can score new old stock. I know there's a couple sellers that have R4 South African magazines, new old stock. Pick up a couple. See if they work. If you want to get them to work, you know the process to do that. Do not file down your magazine catch. It's just creating a little more of a relief on the actual receiver to get that magazine up higher so the bolt strips rounds. But that's optional. You may get lucky. You might have a magazine. The spec is all over the place on these metal magazines. I hate to break it to most of the folks out there. No two are quite alike, even when you measure them with calipers. Not like AK magazines pretty much work in every AK. These are a little more finicky compared to the 7.62x39 steel AK magazine. So that's kind of in a nutshell. I probably put 400 rounds through here, and 100% function through the Tapcos. And then after my modifications to the receiver, 100% through my metal magazines. I might have one or two metal magazines that are just junk. I'll just keep them for parts. But particularly my new old stock magazines run 100%. But I just want to get those new old stock magazines working, and they do work. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I would say this is a buy if you really want a Galeo, and you want the 1.7 twist barrel, and you maybe not care about the IDF markings or some of the scope cut mount. Just look at this as a variant of a contract gun that IMI made for customer, because they make them however you wanted them. So this would be an interesting variant of a contract gun. So hope you enjoyed the video. I'll talk to you later.